Yes, dear. What is it, dear?
Would the world's greatest efficiency expert give his wife a hand, please?
Yeah, in a minute, dear. I'm just finishing my speech for the Women's Club. Get a load of this. And so, dear ladies, we bid farewell to the drudgery and back-breaking labor of Grandmother's Day. Science has changed the kitchen and laundry into veritable gardens of delight. Now, the most difficult chore is performed by the mere turning of a dial. Now, the modern woman has time to loll in the park, visit the library, go to the theater. In short, time to discover what real living means. Well, my little dove, what do you think of that?
That was beautiful. Grandmother's Day, my eye. You don't have to go back that far, you great big efficiency expert, you. Here, put these on.
What for, dear?
You'll find out. Now, I'm just going to sit here and read your speech while you turn that dial you've been talking about that's going to change this chamber of horrors into a veritable garden of delight. Go ahead, fill the washer. This period, while the washer is filling, will give you approximately 3 minutes of leisure, during which time you may loll in the park, visit the library, go to the theater. But me, I'd start the agitator and add the soap. Now put in the clothes.
What do I do now?
Well, it says here that you should give thanks that modern science has so lightened your load. Go ahead, give thanks.
Thanks.
Now you can swing the wringer around and put the clothes through one at a time. And be careful of buttons, zippers, and your fingers. Up and down, up and down, at least a dozen times. Now into the other tub for the second rinse. Up and down. Uh-oh. Mash the zipper, eh?
Oh, finished at last.
That's what you think. Drain and clean the machine. And don't forget the tubs. And the floor. You've done a good job, Cliff. You've had a hard day. This is no kind of work for a good little boy like you.
Give me that script.
What for?
I'm going to tear it up. That speech is ridiculous.
Oh, no, it's not. The speech is fine. It's this way of washing clothes that's ridiculous. Why, it's no better than it was 50 years ago. Why, this wringer washer makes me do 80% of the work.
Well, is there a better way?
Huh. Follow me. Oh, is this the Bendix salesman? Well, this is Mrs. Norton. Mrs. Clifford Norton. Do you remember the Bendix Agitator-Washer you showed me the other day? Well, my husband is very interested in seeing how it operates. Oh. What? Oh, you'll bring one up for a free trial. Good. This afternoon, then. thank you. Wasn't it nice of the man to leave it here for a few days?
Yeah. Can I help?
Oh, no. This moves around as easily as a toy wagon.
Listen, you're sure you know how to run that now?
That child could run it, Cliff. There's nothing new to learn about operating a Bendix Agitator-Washer. Mabel showed me with hers in about 5 minutes. Oh, and isn't it nice to be able to do the washing in the kitchen or wherever I want to? No old rinse tubs to bother about. What are you laughing at?
I just noticed they forgot the wringer.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Well, you don't need a wringer. See this tub? This tub is flexible. So it can squeeze the clothes dry when it's through washing and rinsing them. And yet, it lasts longer than any other kind of tub. We'll see how it works in a minute. Now that I fill the tub with water, start the agitator, add a little soap, just as you do with an ordinary washer, but that's where the comparison with the wringer washer ends. Now I put the clothes in. Now I close the cover, set the timer, and that's all. This Bendix washes automatically, drains the dirty water out automatically without straining the dirt through the clothes.
Well, how in the world does it do that?
I saw it all explained on TV. As the water is pumped out, it creates a vacuum, and the sides of the tub come together and squeeze the dirty water out of the clothes. The dirt that's heavier than water drains away at the bottom, and the lighter than water dirt floats off at the top, down the hollow shaft of the agitator. No dirt left to settle in the clothes at all. Now, to rinse the clothes, instead of using the set tubs, we merely refill the washer, close the cover, and the machine gives the clothes a deep agitated rinse. The clothes are rinsed automatically, vacuum dried automatically, then the washer shuts itself off. Now they're ready for the Bendix dryer.
Well, how dry are they?
Feel them.
What do you know? No dripping? No excess water?
And no big cleanup job afterwards. Can you imagine any way of washing clothes that's as easy on your back, your hands, or your disposition? Why, darling, with a Bendix, I'd be a new woman.
The old woman is good enough for me. But it's a deal.
Read the ending of your speech again, dear.
Now the modern housewife has time for culture, fun, and frolic. Now she has time to visit the library, loll in the park, go to the theater. In short, time to discover what real living is. Well, honey, how'd that sound?
Wonderful, darling. Let's go loll in the park.
And now here is Cliff Norton, your television weatherman.
Hello there, friends of weather everywhere. Suppose we take a look at our map and just see what the weather has in store for us for the next day or two. Now, here in the northwestern section of the south-central portion of the state that we all know and love so well, Ipsissum, in South Dakota, there's a front moving in and moving in an easterly direction. Now here, in the southwestern section of the north-central portion of northern East Carolina, there is another front which is moving in a westerly direction, you see. Now, these two fronts will meet at a certain time. It's hard to tell exactly when, but in round figures, I would say 34 minutes and 19 seconds past 1 a.m. Tomorrow, or the next day. And these fronts should meet right here in Now, of course, there are a lot of elements to be considered, such as precipitation, cloud formations, overproduction, Philadelphia, which might cause these two fronts to reverse themselves, you see, and become backs. In which case, then, they would meet a front to back to... Oh, it's going to rain. Rain, 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 rain. But, well, who cares about the rain? And what does the smart homemaker do when it rains on wash day? She gets in out of the rain. She dries her clothes in a Bendix Automatic Dryer. Now, there's no need to worry about rain, sleet, or snow, because with the Bendix Automatic Dryer in your home, it's always fair weather. And Bendix gives you the shortest clothesline in the world, from here to here. You just put your freshly laundered clothes in your Bendix dryer, set the dial, and that's all there is to it. Your Bendix tumbles the clothes dry safely, just like a summer breeze, and then automatically shuts itself off. Yes, rain or shine, it's always fair weather with a Bendix Automatic Dryer in your home. Why not get your Bendix today? Then you can kiss those weather worries goodbye. Oh, and speaking of goodbye, goodbye. Cliff Norton, your television weatherman.
Mr. Norton, this is Mrs. Jones, 1345 Argyle Street. I'm an avid fan of yours. At least I was. I've just seen your television show, and I'd like to put you straight on something. Now, whoever gave you the ridiculous idea that the big reason for buying a Bendix dryer is the weather? Don't you know anything about the conveniences of a Bendix? How it saves us women the back-breaking labor of drying clothes on the line? Did you ever dry clothes on the line? Now, don't interrupt. Mr. Norton, it's high time you found out what this drying business is all about. Now, you get right over here to my place, and I'll give you a taste of what clothes drying is like.
Oh, Mrs. Jones, I'm a very busy man, you see.
Oh. How's your Hooper rating these days, Mr. Norton? Got all the fan mail you want? Sponsor perfectly satisfied?
I'll be right over.
Thank you. Mr. Norton, to understand the average woman's wash day problems, first of all, you have to put yourself in the average woman's shoes, standing in her backyard on wash day. That's it. Be sure the line's tight or the clothes will drag. Now then, get the clothes. They're in the basement, of course. Want to know something? You forgot the clothespin. That's right. Back to the basement again.
Ow!
That's it. Lift that load, tote that bale, stretch and stoop, stoop and stretch. Oh, don't swallow the clothespins. And don't forget, there's another load waiting in the basement. Poor Mr. Norton. And that's only one of the reasons for using a Bendix dryer.
Okay. So there is more to drying clothes than the weather. But do you want to know something? I can't figure out why you would let yourself in for so much work.
Oh, but I don't do it that way. I do it the Bendix way. I just showed you all that so that you'd appreciate all the features of the Bendix. You come to my laundry and I'll show you what I mean. And another thing, Mr. Norton, when you're talking about the Bendix dryer on your show, be sure to point out that with the Bendix,
Drying clothes is so simple, so easy, that you can do a little each day in a few minutes, instead of saving up all your wash to make a full day's work once a week. Do you know what a Bendix Automatic Dryer means to a homemaker who has to do washing and drying for a family? It means that she doesn't have to buy a lot of clothes to carry through from one week's wash day to the next. She can buy just a few and wash and dry them as they become soiled. And did you say a word about the Bendix safe, low-temperature drying method? No, not a word. And did you know that many dryers use high heat to literally bake the clothes dry, endangering delicate fabrics? But Bendix does it nature's way with safe, low heat. There's a built-in power blower which air conditions the clothes and lets you get rid of heat and lint and moisture. Now that's a feature women will appreciate. You'd better look into this Bendix dryer a lot more thoroughly, Mr. Norton.
Mrs. Jones, this is the greatest thing since the invention of the hamburger. I will look into the Bendix a lot more thoroughly. You just watch me on my next show. And in addition to its convenience and safety features, the Bendix dryer makes your clothes look better and feel better. Here's a rug that was dried in a Bendix dryer. Now see how much better it looks than this one, just like it, that was dried on the line. And this first rug feels better, too. Softer, fluffier. And look at these towels. This pile dried in a Bendix, and these dried on the line. And things last longer, too, when dried in a Bendix, because the Bendix doesn't bleach colors like the sun. This handkerchief has been dried 10 times in a Bendix. This one is no older than the other one, but it's been line dried 10 times. You see the difference? That's sun fading. Ladies, don't wait another day to put a Bendix automatic dryer in your home. Now, let's take a look at the weather. Now, right here in the... Oh, they don't fool old Uncle Cliff a second time, I'll tell you. Oh, sir. Hypocysm.
We go in this land of ours, we see people, old people, young people, people of all descriptions. There are many different kinds of people. Each person has different interests, different desires, yet there is one thing nearly all have in common, something which all share. What could it be? What could J.D. Perry, president of the First National Bank, wealthy and influential citizen of his community, share with Joe Clark, day laborer? Or what could Joe Clark have in common with Betty Wilson, pretty young stenographer? In what respect are these three alike? Just this: they all want things that money can buy. Take Betty, for example. She wants lots of things that money buys. But Betty is like people. There's one thing that she wants more than anything else. Betty wants a new fur coat. She knows that the coat she wants is very expensive, but she can't help dreaming about it. J.D. wants something too, for not even he has money enough to buy everything he wants. J.D. has in mind a small airplane, one he could pilot himself, which he could use for both business and pleasure. Joe Clark has a different desire. What he wants is to be able to send his son to college. Of course, Joe wants a lot of other things too, but educating his son is his great ambition. Most people want some things more than they want others. Is there anything that will help them to get the things they want most? The answer is a budget. But how can a budget do this? Is it magic? First, just what is a budget? A budget is a plan for spending designed to give the maximum satisfaction for a given income. J.D. Perry is budgeting so that he can buy that airplane. He has several incomes and many expenditures, so his budget is written on paper, but that is not necessary for everyone. Right here is Betty Wilson's budget, all in her head. Her income is the same every month, and her expenditures are simple, so she doesn't keep a formal written budget. Hers is an informal mental budget. Her only writing may be keeping her checkbook stubs. That doesn't mean her budget is not a good one. It is every bit as good for her as J.D. Perry's written, complicated form is for him. But how can a budget accomplish this maximum satisfaction? Let's see what happened to Mr. Perry when a car salesman took him in to see the latest model. J.D.'s car is 2 years old, and it's nothing like this gleaming beauty. J.D. was tempted. But wise man that he is, Mr. Perry told the salesman that he'd have to think it over. When he got home that night, he consulted his plan for spending. He found that if he bought the car, he'd have to postpone buying the airplane. The airplane was what J.D. had decided he really wanted, so he decided not to buy the car. His budget made him realize that he couldn't have both right away. His budget helped him steer a straighter course toward his goal. Recently, Betty Wilson and a friend found themselves going to the drugstore almost every evening for sodas. Betty loves chocolate sodas. But one evening she counted the cost for a whole year. She was amazed. She found that even though one soda costs very little, her sodas for a whole year cost more than she had thought possible. Now, Betty must decide whether to go on drinking sodas or have her coat a little sooner. The budget will not decide this for her, but will show her that she must make the choice. The budget helps people to buy what they really want instead of spending money on lesser desires. Joe has a different problem. Remember, Joe doesn't make much money, and what he does make has to go a long way. He's saving for that boy's college education. Should he buy the new roller skates the boy wants so much? Joe decides that if he and Mrs. Clark stay home from 2 movies their budget has already provided for, they can buy the skates. Joe and his wife know that buying the skates will not reduce their savings. That's another good thing about a budget. People know where their money is going. They need not feel guilty about buying worthwhile articles. There's another way in which a budget helps, too. Betty Wilson knows that there is a way for her to buy her fur coat tomorrow if she wants to. She could buy it on the installment plan. But Betty knows that this means paying interest and carrying charges. She knows that a $200 coat could easily cost much more when bought on the installment plan. So Betty decides to save ahead for her coat. Her spending plan, her budget, has encouraged her to avoid the extra costs of buying on time. So each month she adds to her fur coat fund. A good budget helps people in several ways. But what is a good budget? A good budget is a family affair. Joe Clark found that his wife had a lot of valuable ideas and was fully as interested in the family finances as he was. Your budget must be simple, as simple as you can possibly make it. If it isn't, you're likely to give up and discard the family budget entirely. Your budget must be elastic. It must be able to accommodate the changing conditions of your life. For example, one night a young man called on Mr. Perry, asked him to invest some money in a new business. After looking at the figures, J.D. decided the opportunity was too good to pass up, so he accepted the young man's proposition. His budget needed a little revision, but it was elastic enough to accommodate a change in plan. A good budget must be realistic. It must leave a margin of safety for possible illness or other emergency. It must leave a margin for impulse buying, of which almost everyone is guilty at times. No matter how good your budget is, it can't help you if you don't stick to it. When the Clarks first started budgeting, Joe came home one night with a new shotgun. It cost a lot of money, money which was not included in the budget. At the end of the month, Joe got a letter from the landlord. He had to sell the shotgun in order to pay the rent. If Joe had consulted his budget, he would have discovered that he could not afford the gun at that time. Joe learned that his budget could help him only if he let it help him, only if he was willing to stick to it. No, a budget is not magic. It cannot give you everything you want, but it can, if properly used, help you to reject the things that will not give you the greatest satisfaction. It can help you to recognize your everyday extravagances. It can help you to know where you stand, what you can afford, and what you can't. It encourages you to save ahead instead of mortgaging your future income. Whether you want an airplane, as J.D. Perry did, a new fur coat, as Betty Wilson wanted, or a college education, as Joe Clark wanted for his son, you're more likely to get what you want if you plan your spending, if you use a budget.
I'm Albert. This is Mr. Brandon, Lord of the house. This is Mrs. Brandon, the gracious lady of the house. And this is Tommy, the sun and air. A few years ago, I was much more popular. But for some reason nowadays, I don't seem to do anything right. I wish I knew why they feel this way. I'm supposed to be their best friend. This room used to be my home. Look at that mess of newspapers. And they find fault with me. Oh, well, no rest for the weary. As for that antique chair in the hall, they needn't worry. I missed it. Well, I hope they're satisfied now. Put out, just like a cat. Well, there's always another way in. I'll bet they're feeling ashamed of themselves. He's perking up. Something in that magazine, apparently. That's much better. Wonder what's in the magazine. Whatever it is, I'm all for it. They'll soon realize that a dog needs a happy home. I don't know exactly what they're doing, but at least all this activity keeps them out of my hair. My friend Tommy is a one-man construction gang. And here's the armchair architect. That blue paper came in the mail from the magazine people the other day. And the Brandons can't seem to do a thing without it. Means nothing to me. Life's much simpler if the only thing you can read is your name. That power tool is the pride and joy of the Brandons' workshop. This shop also serves as my bedroom, now that I've been moved out into the suburbs, as it were. I don't have any privacy since they started doing all this construction. I'm not much of a technical type, more of a philosopher, I guess. These tools are kind of interesting, though. Listen to Mr. Brandon tell Tommy about them.
I can use the power unit as a drill, a sander, or a polisher. And I have some darn handy attachments for it, too. Take the portable circular saw attachment, for instance. All you need is a screwdriver, and it goes on in a few seconds. That motor is powerful, and the saw, like the other attachments, mounts right up close to it. That means it runs true, and that's important when you want to do accurate work. All I have to do is tighten this nut, and our power unit becomes a professional saw. If Albert only knew.
Well, as we dogs say, a busy human is a harmless human.
The circular saw, like the other attachments, revolves over 3,000 times a minute. This saw can work several ways. For instance, it can cut a bevel. Of course, you should always be careful when doing any kind of shop work, but it's a lot easier to work safely with a well-made outfit like this. With power like this, no fear of stalling, even on heavy timber.
You know, I'll bet they could build a house with that thing. Brandon and Son, builders.
With this attachment, the power unit turns into a handy jigsaw. As with the other attachments, I finish tightening it before I plug it in. Whether cutting wood or metal, straight lines and tricky curves are easy with the jigsaw attachment. And the power unit fits into the bench saw easily for precise work like notching. The plane is another useful addition to our power workshop. So is the drill press. For even simple projects, you may need quite a lot of tools. Here, we've needed only one basic power tool, but we've turned it into a complete power workshop. And it has attachments that even a young fella can use to start his shop experience. Like the orbital sander, for instance. No rough surfaces here.
And no smooth feelings here. Now, on top of everything, I'm being evicted again. When I think of how we St. Bernards have been helping people all these years. Smooth finish indeed. Well, they're almost done. Say, I bet I know what it's going to be. A clubhouse for Tommy and his gang. Very good idea. Well, with all this outdoor activity, the living room will be nice and quiet. Was a little peace and quiet, and they put me in chains. Now they want to show off their project. They're all finished. Very pretty it is, too. Make a good clubhouse. A-L-B. Oh. That's not a clubhouse. You know, that hurts. That hurts real deep. They might well look like that. Serves them right. I've got feelings, too. Thought of something. Well, I'll just let them all think the whole thing over. They're waiting for me. Well, let them wait. And they can find some other useful thing to do with their power tool. They've got a doghouse, all right, but no dog. senses. And we'll have no more nonsense. You know, it looks different somehow. It's got a carpet, just like the living room. That must have been Tommy's idea. Well, that does make a difference. But look how messy it is. You know, I can't have that sort of thing. That's better. She'll learn. Well, what's good enough for Lassie? After all, you've got to be flexible. It certainly has privacy. And it comes in 3 sizes.
This is winter over a large part of the United States and Canada. Yes, this is winter. Last year, this year, next year, over most of North America. And it isn't funny. It's never very funny to be marooned in a car that won't start. Yet, every winter, this tragic scene is repeated thousands upon thousands of times. And thousands upon thousands of motorists learn some grim lessons. One is the effect of cold on batteries. In sub-zero temperature, any battery, even when fully charged, shrinks in cranking power to about 1/3 of its normal output. So, obviously, it isn't capable of meeting this emergency. But then, that's no news to you. You know what happens.
You're not kidding. And during the last few years, it's been getting worse all the time.
Which cars give you the most trouble?
All of them, but mostly those fancy super deluxe jobs with all the gadgets on them. And no wonder. Just look at one. Did you ever add up the juice-eating equipment on one of these babies? Go ahead. Of course, there are the headlights, and the parking lights, and the fog lights, and turning signal lights. Probably a big spotlight to boot. Now, take a look at the rear. They've all got 2 tail lights, and a stoplight, another pair of turning signal lights, even a backing up light. Then there's the license light and a light inside the trunk. Brother, we've just started. There's a light for the floor, a light in the top, and up front, a cigar lighter, and more lights than a Christmas tree. Add to all those a super-duper radio, and a forced air power heater, and electric windshield wipers. Finally, we're just getting around to starting the car, if there's any juice left. And here's something few people realize, even dealers. The original equipment battery in cars today has no more capacity than in 1935. Now, think what that means. In those days, that battery had enough reserve to get by, even when in low charging periods. But today, the current load has been stepped up more than 40% on the same size battery. So, what's the answer? Well, unless the car has a lot of long, fast runs, the battery's reserve gets exhausted. And on the first cold snap, it's liable to conk out. You know, I wish we had a heavy-duty battery that I could put in those big super deluxe jobs.
We have.
Yes, sir. And trucks and buses, too. How's that? What did you say?
I said we have a new heavy-duty line. And it not only tops the pre-war Atlas HDs, but competition as well. We built it that way, on purpose.
Brother, tell me more.
There's no mystery or magic about it. Atlas technicians simply made a point-by-point check on the newest models of all the top-flight battery makers, analyzed the best features of each, then deliberately built an Atlas which would top them all in every feature of performance. And here it is, more powerful, more dependable, longer-lived, and more liberally backed up than any other battery on the market, at any price. Now, gentlemen, I scarcely need to tell you that this model of the HD1 is considerably larger than life size. But when you get to know it better, you'll wonder how Atlas packs so much power into the regular-sized case. Now, let's go over this newcomer to the Atlas line, feature by feature, and see how it compares with these other well-known leaders among heavy-duty batteries. You notice we didn't pick any dogs. This is the top flight of competition. Backbone of battery performance is the plate with its active material. The greater the area of the face, the more powerful the surge of starting effort. The more active material contained in the plate, the longer the useful life. Now, let's be fair. None of the competitive batteries have skimped in either plate size or amount of active material. They're all soundly designed according to conventional standards. But Atlas has super power plates, bigger in size and with more active material. And how many of our competitors have this important heavy-duty feature? Just one. Only one of our rivals equals Atlas in plate size and amount of active material. Now, what's the next outstanding quality requirement? Well, as you all know, the greatest enemy of battery life is plate shedding, caused by the scouring action of the bubbles in the acid solution when the battery works. To combat this plate shedding, Atlas employs fiberglass retainer mats. It's expensive construction, but it's the best means we've been able to find to hold that vital paste in place. And in this respect, most of our top competition agrees. 6 out of the 8 leaders have standardized on this quality feature. The others, well, I might point out that some don't use any retainer mats at all. Now, consider the matter of plate separators. Atlas uses top quality wood, especially adapted for this job. This wood is hard to get, and its treatment and handling are a big job. But we believe the extra cost and care are justified by the extra results, and so do the majority of our competitors in this top quality field. Now, let's take another big feature. As you know, one of the real bugbears of battery service is overfilling. It causes corrosion of the cables, the hold-downs, and all metal with which the solution comes in contact. Atlas was among the first in the field with the Protecto valve to provide positive and automatic protection against that hazard. Perhaps you'd be interested to see just how this works. Here's a cross-section of the Atlas Protecto valve as it looks with the cap in place. When the cap is removed for filling, a safety seal inside the filler neck drops down to seal the air release vent. As water is added, the level of the solution rises until it reaches the bottom of the filler neck. Then a miracle happens. The pressure of air trapped within the cell by the safety seal holds the level of solution constant. Any excess water merely fills the neck. Even if you deliberately continue to add water, the level of solution wouldn't change, and the excess overflowing the neck would be just clean, harmless water. When the cap is replaced, it automatically lifts the safety seal, releasing the airlock and allowing the small amount of water in the neck to flow down and mix with the solution. And there you are. Perfectly simple and foolproof. Absolutely automatic protection. And what's the score on this vital safety feature? Atlas and only 2 of its competitors have it. Here's something else. The post seals. Of course, there are any number of ways to seal the posts. Years ago, we determined the best way was to fuse the posts, bushings, and connectors into one single solid unit, forever proof against leaking or looseness. And, as you'll observe, our worthy competitors have now climbed on the bandwagon. And now we come to the case. Atlas uses genuine hard rubber, and again in this feature, all the top flight manufacturers are in agreement. That covers the details of construction. Now, how about results? Let's see how many of these proud old names are backed up by a plain statement of certified capacity. Only Atlas, and maybe there's a very good reason. As you know, Atlas pioneered the certified capacity medallion right on the battery. A simple, straightforward performance rating based on test standards developed by the Society of Automotive Engineers. Customers can see on the outside exactly what's on the inside. These cover the three most vital phases of battery performance: life cycles, which is a measure of endurance; ampere hours, a measure of electrical size or reserve capacity; and zero starting, the real test of guts in the battery when you need it the most. Most of the other battery makers don't feature this vital information. Oh, they may make some reference to the number of plates or ampere hours, but mostly they're content to just call the batteries supercapacity or some other fancy name. But we wanted to know how well our competition compared with Atlas, and we found out, simply by applying the SAE tests to all of them. So, let's see how many of these batteries measure up to the heavy-duty standard of 600 life cycles. The answer is only Atlas out of all 8. And what about the others? Well, this much I will tell you. This Atlas tops the heavy-duty rating standard of the SAE by more than 89%. Now, what about ampere-hour capacity? We believe that heavy-duty performance in this class demands 120 ampere hours. And how many of our worthy competitors have it? There's the answer: Atlas and nobody else. Some come pretty close, and others, well, not so close. But Atlas tops them all, even tops the SAE standard by 20%. Now, let's consider zero starting, that all-important factor that can mean the difference between starting or stuck on a cold winter morning. How many equal the heavy-duty rating of 4.4 minutes of continuous cranking? Again, Atlas stands alone. But then, that's not surprising, because this Atlas gives 40% higher zero cranking performance than required by SAE standards for its class. Finally, here is the acid test of quality. How highly do the manufacturers themselves rate their own product? It's easy enough to tell by the warranty they put behind them. What we've put into our battery makes it possible to back it with a 30-month warranty. How many others equal that? Not one. Atlas stands alone, because Atlas is outstanding in all the elements that spell dependability, performance, and long life. Look at that table of quality features. Look hard. Notice that all the leaders provide some of the elements of excellence. But Atlas, and only Atlas, has them all. And only Atlas is represented by an army of more than 25,000 dealers, blanketing the United States and Canada, ready to back up that warranty with instant on-the-spot adjustment. This is just one of the new Atlas heavy-duty line which spearheads our battery program of the future. And all share in the same outstanding quality of features, the same unremitting care and craftsmanship, and the same performance leadership. Awaiting them is a ready-made market, those who want and will pay extra for extra life, extra reserve capacity, extra starting ability, and extra all-round dependability. The motorist who invested a small fortune in current-consuming accessories and likes to use them. Cars in which complete dependability of performance is an absolute must. Rolling wheels with responsibility in maintaining our health, safety, and welfare, sometimes life itself. Motorists who year after year face the challenge of winter's icy bitterness. Motorists accustomed to having the best and accustomed to paying for the best. Commercial transport, high-speed delivery service, and intercity highway express trucks to which delays of even minutes are reckoned in terms of dollars. Yes, plenty of prospects. And the best part of it is you don't even have to track them down. They come to you. And merely by including a few easy battery service steps as a part of your regular service routine, you get the first and best chance to sell them. 6 simple steps that are not only good service sense, but also build bonus business. And always remember the old tried and true axiom, battery sales grow out of battery service. Your hydrometer is the key to this extra business. Use it. Check all batteries, not only on your lubrication jobs, but those at the gas island as well. Check transients as well as regular customers. If the battery looks good and tests better than 1225, that's fine. Just add water as necessary and clean and tighten cable terminals. Sure, you won't sell him a new battery right now, but you have sold him on yourself and your service and set him up as a good prospect for that day in the future when he will need a new battery. But if the hydrometer reading is 1225 or lower, recommend a recharge. Tell him that his battery is only half charged and using it in that condition will certainly shorten its life. He'll buy a recharge if he has the facts. And that means more than just a shot in the arm. Give it a full recharge, all the battery will take. The Atlas Safety Fast Charger automatically delivers maximum charge with complete protection for the battery. Then, make a capacitest to determine whether the battery has sufficient capacity for dependable starting. If the capacitest says good, that's fine. At least you've made the price of a recharge and perhaps new cables or plugs. In any case, you've impressed your customer with your service. But if the capacitest says the battery's worn out, well, your selling job has been started for you by the capacitest, and it's up to you to follow through. On the other hand, if the test shows poor, that means the battery has just a few months of precarious life remaining. Then, you've got a selling job on your hands. But in justice to your customer and to yourself, at least make a strong effort to sell a new battery and dependable starting. Here's a situation you'll frequently run into, especially in summertime. During routine service, you take a reading on the battery of a car that obviously has seen a lot of service. The hydrometer gives you a pretty good reading. But when you look at the battery, you know doggone well it's seen its best days. What to do? Well, just remember, the hydrometer can measure only the level of charge. To measure the actual starting dependability and life expectancy of that battery, you've got to make a capacitest. This is particularly true of batteries that may be practically worn out but still have enough capacity to handle the light loads of summer driving. So, you make the capacitest, and sure enough, there's the story. But how to get this story across to the customer without offending him or starting an argument? That's easy. Toss him the ball, like this.
Say, Mr. Archer, how old is your battery?
Why, I don't know. Let's see now. About 2 years, I guess. Why do you ask?
And brother, now it's up to you to tell him. Chances are his battery is already past its warranty. It's living on borrowed time now. But don't expect him to know that. That's your job. And it's your job to be able to tell him how and why batteries fail. Why they may get by during the easy summer season, then conk out the first time they get a full starting load. Yes, sir. It's your job to know and your job to tell him what you know. And if you do the job right, you've sold a battery. But which battery? That's the question that vitally affects the profits of your bonus business. After all, there's competition between the 3 lines of Atlas batteries, too. Naturally, that customer is thinking in terms of an outlay of money. If you let him choose by himself, there's always a chance he might grab for the cheapest in the line. So, it's up to you to steer his thinking to dependable performance. So, sell your star performer, the Atlas heavy-duty line. We've made the job easy for you. First, by giving you a heavy-duty line that tops competition. And second, by rating panels plainly and proudly displayed on the batteries themselves, which tempt the customer into the top quality brackets. So sell quality, sell the best, the heavy duty. Even if you suspect your customer may be price conscious, sell top quality. Then, if he insists on something cheaper, you can, if necessary, step down to the A line. Yes, sir, push that new heavy-duty line. That's the line for top performance and top profits. And more motorists are becoming more and more conscious of the need for maximum starting dependability. That's why we deliberately set out to build a heavy duty we knew would be an outstanding champion. Outstanding feature by feature and heavy duty top quality comparison. Outstanding in coverage, blanketing the entire profitable service station market, both passenger cars and trucks. Outstanding in profit, with more dollar volume and more net to you. That's what we mean by bonus business, and it's all yours if you go after it.
Joe, don't. Stop it.
Enough to drive a man crazy.
Joe, great Christmas.
Can I help you?
Yeah, listen to that. Just started about 10 miles back. Must have been that rough stretch of road.
Sounds like it's time for a lube job. Is it?
It's been a good 1,000 miles.
It has.
And you're always after me to have it lubricated and the oil changed every 1,000.
Yeah, well, you see, we've been on a trip. I guess I was kind of anxious to get home. You know, this is the first real vacation trip we've had since,
Joe, for heaven's sake, he doesn't care when we had a vacation. It was the spring of 39.
Yeah, 39. Don't suppose you could take care of us right away?
Sure. Drive right in.
Well, nice looking layout they got here. Funny, they're not busy, though.
Now, Joe, this is our vacation.
Yeah, I know. I was just wondering, that's all. I was just thinking how cold my hands used to get. Well, come on, let's get out.
Let's see. Lube job. You want to change the oil at the same time, don't you?
Yeah.
Check transmission and differential.
Give her a good job and get that squeak out of there. Oh, I'm Joe Oakes from Lebanon.
Oh?
Yeah. Come on, let's have a coat.
All right. Joe, how long do you think it'll take him?
Well, the way that young fellow's going, I'd say about 20 minutes. Plus some more.
What do you mean?
Oh, nothing. I was just thinking again. Minutes. What'd I tell you?
Well, I hope he got that squeak out.
Well, he didn't.
How can you tell?
Okay, sir. She's all set.
She is, huh? Never mind. You don't mind if I finish it up myself, do you?
I really sprayed those springs, sir. Maybe after it works in. Or, could be a body squeak.
You haven't been in this business very long, have you, young fella? Mighty good idea to check that lubrication guide you got over there, son. Makes things easier. It's safer, too.
Oh, sure. I knew that. I just forgot, that's all. Here, let me do that for you.
No, thanks. I'll get her. Get me that big screwdriver, will you? Thanks. Now, when I say when, I want you to rock the car. All right, go ahead, rock her. That's no body squeak, son. Once more. Go ahead. All right, rock her again. Got it. Not all that easy, though. Different kinds of springs. And each one has to be handled according to the book.
What's the idea? I couldn't stop him. He's got a squeak.
A what?
A squeak. That's what I thought you said.
Here. Thanks.
Well, she's gone.
Thanks.
I'm Pete Staples.
How do, Pete? I'm Joe Oakes. I take it you're the dealer, huh? Mighty nice layout you've got here.
Thanks. But we don't like to have our customers finish up their own jobs. I'd like to...
Now, take it easy, Pete. This young fellow's new. Instead of beating his ears down, he'll have to learn what you can do with a lube room.
How do you mean?
Well, I mean profits, goodwill, confidence. Why, say, I built my business on it.
You run a filling station?
Sure. I'm a standard dealer, too. You know, I used to be in show business. You wouldn't believe it to look at me now, would you? But I got sick. And the doctor said I'd have to have some outside work. Well, I got myself a service station. One with an outside lift. It was outside work, all right. In those days, I thought oil was oil and grease was grease. But over the years, the special lubricants and greases have been developed just wonderfully. But most of my customers didn't know it. They had confidence in Standard's products, sure. But they kept coming to me because of the special way I took care of them. You gotta dramatize it. It's just like the show business. They want you to be the doctor, the expert. And after a while, you get pretty good, too. Well, I built up a good business, and then I decided to improve the place. The Standard Oil engineers helped me plan the thing. It's all paid off now, and if I do say so, a mighty good investment, too. You must do a good gas business here, Pete. How many lube jobs do you do?
Oh, we knock out about 50, 60 a month.
Holy smokes. Seems to me I used to do better than that with that old outside lift of mine. Do well over 100 now. Mostly neighborhood, of course, but I do get some trenching business, too. I figure I have to do over 100 to make the right profit on my investment.
If you're doing over 100 a month, you must get pretty rushed sometimes.
I'll say. Boy, the weekends were plenty rough until I got smart and put my lubrication and wash jobs on an appointment basis, just like a doctor. Had to if I wanted to turn out a good job and still have time to sell the stuff they really needed. Takes time, you know.
That may be true at your station, but people around here, they're in a hurry.
Sure, at the pumps they want speed, but in here they want just the opposite. And I think I know why, too. Say, what's the most expensive thing you own?
Why, I guess it's my car.
Sure, and that's true of 4 out of 5 drivers. Oh, maybe I'm talking too much.
Not by a long shot. I didn't quite get that point about, you know, dramatizing a lube job.
I'll bet we've had the same standard training. But like I told you, this show business does something for you. You know, I could show you a lot better than I could tell you. Wait a minute.
You know, that old guy's got something. Did you ever see that trick with a screwdriver before?
Sure, I've seen it. Well, you never told me. I'm just beginning to realize a lot of things I never told you.
You know, Sarah, my wife thinks I'm a little touched in the head. Well, maybe so. But if you let me, I'll handle your next customer for you. You and me, eh, Pete?
Who, me?
Sure, and Hal can stand by and see how it's done.
Swell. Here, I'll get it.
Well, how about
Yeah. Oh, yeah, sure. If you got the time.
it? Time? My boy's running my station now. I'm practically retired. I'd get a kick out of it.
It's a deal. And dinner's on me.
Oh, that's all right. What I need, though, is a shop coat. Yeah, and a hat. Size 7 3/8. Oh, this is going to be fun. It'll take about 2 quarts. Is it time to change the oil?
Darned if I know. Wait a minute. Yeah.
It'll only take a few minutes. Oh, we're through with the car on the lift now.
Well, okay.
Yes, sir, right away.
C.H. Fields, 450 Sheridan, City.
Crank case drain. Are you using Permalube?
No, I'm not.
Well, I recommend it. Permalube is our finest motor oil.
Okay.
How's the battery, Pete?
Just checking it, Joe. The last time I had it in, the fella put some stuff on it, pip or something.
Oh, you mean PIB. P-I-B. That really protects your ignition and batteries. And it does a good job of preventing corrosion, too.
That's what he said. Battery's right up there, almost 1270 all the way through. Needs a little water, though.
Now the mileage. 32,556. According to your record, it's time for a chassis lubrication. We can do that while it's draining.
Oh,
You know, it's always a good idea to have these things done at the same time. They're easier to keep track of.
okay.
Check the oil filter, will you, Pete?
It's pretty cool. There's quite a difference. According to this, you've gone over 10,000.
You get so you can tell just by putting your hand on them. The temperature of the filter ought to be about the same as the engine. If it isn't, it generally means that you've got a dirty filter. The oil isn't circulating through as it should. Of course, in your case, you've driven way over the recommended mileage. About double, in fact.
Is it much of a job to change it?
No, it'll only take a few minutes, Mr. Fields. And I suggest that you let us put an element-type filter on there. It'll cost you a little more money right now. But from now on, instead of replacing the whole filter, you just replace the little element inside. You see what I mean?
That sounds all right. Go ahead.
Put on a replacement type, Pete. Nice-looking car you got there.
Oh, I try to keep her up.
Yeah, it pays. More people should be like you.
From the way this started draining and the appearance of the oil breather cap, I'd say this engine's pretty dirty.
I thought it would be. We recommend cleaning that engine with stand-up purge before we put in the Permalube. Then with the new filter, clean engine, and Permalube, you'll really be set.
Okay. Give her the works.
Chris, if this is going to take a while, I'm going to do a little shopping.
All right.
I won't be long.
Transmission okay. Differential okay. What's he doing?
Checking the tires, pressure, anything he can see. What'd you find?
Well, what do you know?
Surprising what you find in tires. Catch them now and save trouble later.
Sure, I imagine it'd eventually work inside and blow the tire.
You're right there. Step over here a moment, Mr. Fields. Here's something I think you might be interested in. Now, on your car, 39 different lubrication points with 7 different types of lubricants.
22 in front, 14 center,
3 back, 39 altogether.
Before we start to lubricate, we clean all the fittings. That way we can check on all of them and remove any dirt or moisture. Otherwise, when we put the gun on, we'd push the dirt right into the bearings.
Why, I hadn't thought of that. Sounds like a good idea.
Oh, sure. How's the steering leakage, Pete?
Tell you in a second. There's a fitting missing here. I'll put one in right away.
Okay, Pete. Well, look here, Mr. Fields. Here's something kind of interesting. Now, this chassis grease resists water. If we didn't have this special kind, after a while, with the water splashing up there, the grease would all wash out. This grease really sticks to the bearings, so it's time for the next job.
Steering linkage is okay, Joe.
Okay. That's part of the steering apparatus. We catch one once in a while that's about ready to fall off. And that's dangerous.
I'll say it is. You check this close in every car?
Every one. You can't be too careful.
That's right. I'm going to drop her down now.
It'll take a little time to stand up purge your car, but it really does a job. It's a special solvent that removes engine deposits. While we're doing that, we'll clean her up.
Boy, that really loosened a lot of dirt, Joe. That engine should be pretty clean now.
Yeah, and Permalube will keep it clean. Yes, sir, that's a great oil. Cleans, protects, and lubricates all at the same time.
What's that stuff he's using?
You see, oil rots rubber. So on all the rubber fittings, we use a special lubricant called Ruglide. It preserves the rubber and still gives you lubrication. We were talking about chassis grease a moment ago. Now, in the rear wheel bearings, we use a different kind. I'll show you the difference. Oh, Pete, give me a little shot of that, will you? Now, this grease isn't going to be exposed to water. The problem here is high temperature in the bearings and the need for a grease to cling to a fast-whirling bearing surface. Do you have any record as to when your rear wheel bearings were lubricated?
No, why?
Well, if they're over-lubricated, there's just a chance that some of it might run over onto the brake landings, then your brakes wouldn't hold. But we won't take any chances either way. Pete, give him a little shot, will you? Not too much.
I'll be careful.
With your car, it only takes about a half an ounce for every 10,000 miles. That's why we like to keep a record of things like that.
You mean if you took care of my car, you'd have a record?
That's right. Well, let's see how we're doing. Yeah. Plug's all tight. Looks okay. Hey, Pete. Better tighten this nut.
Bumper loose?
Yeah, and catch the license plate, too.
I'll get it as soon as I roll that linkage.
I'll drop it down for you. There's no notation on your sun visor about your front wheel bearings. If you have the time, we might as well check them for you right now.
Well, my wife isn't back yet. Go ahead.
Put on the new filter, Pete, and then we'll check the front wheel bearings.
Good idea.
If you're interested, here's the way the grease in your front wheel bearing should look.
Well, what happens if it stays too long, you know?
Gets runny. Here, I'll show you.
Take a look.
Yeah, it's runny all right, and way too much lubricant. Actually, there shouldn't be any grease in this cup at all. In front wheel bearings, as in other places, it isn't the amount you cram in that really counts. It could get right past the grease retainer when it's like this. One of two things can happen. The grease might get on your brake landings, and then it might just run away from the bearings, and they'd freeze on you.
Either way, you're an accident waiting to happen.
Yeah, a lot of them happen like that, and nobody ever knows why. Better clean the air cleaner while we're about it, Pete. And get the crankcase breather cap at the same time.
Okay. I bet you had a little rattle in here. This air cleaner is loose. I'll take care of it.
Oh, so that's what it was.
We'll check to be sure we didn't miss anything. Oh, by the way, your water pump uses a special kind of grease, too. Has to resist hot water. It looks different, too. Oh, Pete, give me a shot out of the water pump gun, will you? There, you see?
There's a lot more of this than I realized.
Yeah. And I'll tell you another thing a lot of people miss. Did you get the rotor wick?
Not yet, but I'll get it.
Let's go over and watch him do it. It only takes a couple of seconds to take care of it. You see, we take off the distributor cap and arm, and there's a little piece of felt down there.
What's that, an eyedropper?
Yeah, you have to be careful not to over-lubricate here. It only takes 2 drops. While we're under the hood, we check the fan belt, the radiator hose, the radiator, and then put dories on the hood lacings.
What do you mean, hood lacings?
Well, look. Those things. The hood rests against them. Then, of course, he's already put a little Ruglide on the rubber mountings.
Let's check the lights while we're here.
Okay. Now, if you'll watch the tail and the stoplights, I'll watch here.
Sure.
Go ahead, Pete.
Full, dim, parking, brake, off.
Okay. How is it back there?
Okay, fine.
How about the dash and the dome?
Okay, I'll get the ashtrays and stuff in here.
All right. I'll check the trunk and the spare. Is it locked?
No.
We'll put a vacuum in there and get some of that dirt out. Now, if I had some idea about how much driving you do, we could remind you when to come in. Oh, by the way, how many miles do you put on every month?
Well, I'm on the road a lot. I imagine it'd run about 1,300.
Pete, after you check the crankcase, let's put the vacuum in here. You get in every weekend?
Yeah, but I'm pretty busy with reports and stuff, and seeing the family.
The way you drive, you ought to be ready about every 3 weeks. We'll send you a reminder card ahead of time, and then we'll telephone you. We'll come over, pick up your car, take care of it. Then you'll know you're okay and you won't have to worry. I'll make a note of that on your card.
Say, that'd be all right. How much do I owe you?
Al, that'll be $13.55.
Thank you, sir.
Here's your receipt.
Thanks.
Pete, fill out a door jam sticker. Change the vision record, too.
Okay, Joe, I'll handle it.
You drive around a lot, Mr. Fields. You should carry one of our credit cards.
Oh, I've thought about it.
Oh, they come in mighty handy. And then with your receipts, you have a good record of your car expense.
I'll hang on to this. Good idea.
Step right in here, Mr. Fields. While you're here, you ought to see how we keep our records. You see, we keep an accurate check of what was done, when it was done, and then we always know what should be done, what you need and when.
Say, you've got quite a system here.
Yes, sir. Tell you what, I'll give you a credit card application now. You fill it in, mail it, and they'll take care of you right away.
Thanks. You know, I've been driving cars for a long time, but I didn't realize until right now what it takes to keep them going. Why, it takes an expert to do it right.
You bet.
Not only that, it takes a lot of special equipment. Say, I think my tank will hold another 5 gallons.
Take care of you right away. Hal,
Right here.
put in 5 more White Crown, will you?
Sure.
Have you been waiting long, dear?
No, just finished.
Oh, good. They did a beautiful job of cleaning it up.
Best job I ever had done. You know, I thought I was a salesman. But that older fellow over there, he really gave me a couple of good ideas. He's good.
He certainly seemed nice.
He's a good salesman, plenty. Remember the last time I had the car greased? Why, the guy put more grease in my new tires than anywhere else. Quite a difference.
Well, you really gave him the works.
No, maybe it looked that way to you. But I've found out if you take care of what people really need and let them see you do it, you never have to worry about how much you sell.
It's funny, too. There isn't a thing we did, actually did, that I don't do for my customers all the time.
Sure, but you don't tell them about it. That's where a little show business in your background helps out. We didn't sell that fella anything he didn't really need.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, actually, you do a better lubrication job than I do. But people want a show. When people come into my lube room, it's just like a stage to me. The footlights go on, and the curtain goes up. And if people don't stick around and watch to see what you've done, tell them about it. You know, little things like the 10-star guide, special grease, tightening a bumper, or something like that. Of course, those things are commonplace to us, but to the customer, they're new. You know, it's funny, but I guess that's why they call it show business. It's a show, all right, but it's a business, too.
Oh, Joe, are you about ready?
Coming right along, Sarah. I guess you didn't quite get the full story, did you, Pete?
How do you mean?
Well, I'm a dealer, too, you know.
Yeah, sure.
And I'd hate to go down the street to buy my gasoline.
I didn't know you needed some.
Well, you could have asked.
But you know how it is with the Casper milk toasts of this world. They have to get even somewhere for the beating they take at home or in the office. And that somewhere for Herbie was our service station driveway. I saw right off that Gibbs' service was too routine, too mechanical. It probably wouldn't have made any customer happy. But to Herbie, it was a real slight. He thought Gibb was being disrespectful. Of course, Herbie's type is always looking for slights and disrespect.
Shall I check under the hood?
Well, that's supposed to be your job, isn't it? What are you trying to do? Give me the brush off? Go ahead. Get on with it.
Poor Gibb was really taken by surprise. He was so flabbergasted, actually, that he fumbled a little trying to get the hood up. Well, that's when Herbie teed off on him again. Gibb, he said, was just rushing through, trying to get rid of him so he could get on to some important and rich customers. Herbie really needed to add a quart of oil, but you can betcha he wasn't in any mood to buy when Gibb showed him the dipstick. He said he was going somewhere else, where people valued his business and treated him like he was as good as the next fellow. Haven't I said earlier that Herbie was an on-again, off-again customer? Well, you can see why now. He'd get peeved every now and then about some imagined brush-off, and he'd vanish for a while. I hadn't realized myself how much that guy had to have respect. How he wore his, what do you call it, inferiority complex right on his sleeve.
What was wrong, Skipper? I tried to give that guy all 8 steps of service, but he just kept chewing me out.
Look, Gibb, that driveway's getting loaded up again. Just as soon as we get a break, I'll... Go ahead, Gibb. We'll get together in just a minute. Humble service. And who should be driving the other car but our friend of the Homburg and the fussy ways, Jason Whitby. Well, luckily, my phone call lasted only a half minute, so I got back in time to keep an eye on what was happening. I had an idea Gibb was going to have trouble. I'd waited on Mr. Whitby myself. I more or less knew what he was in for.
Hey, won't those paper towels scratch my windshield? I don't want my windshield all scratched up.
Yes, but no, they won't.
Besides, they leave a film of oil all over everything, too.
No, but you see, sir, these paper towels won't scratch because they're made of a special fiber, so they...
You see, Mr. Whitby was one of those peculiar types whose car is almost more important to him than his wife and kids. Possessive and bossy. That was Whitby. And actually, he didn't trust anybody but himself with his car. Now, of course, Gibb didn't know all this, but he started finding out a few things when he lifted the hood without asking Whitby's permission. It's a good rule, if you haven't waited on a customer before, to ask courteously if you may check under the hood. Well, Gibb fell down there, but frankly, not many customers would flip a lid like Jason Whitby. But this time, Gibb was so bum-fuzzled that he did everything wrong. Gibb completely forgot to check the crankcase, and you can hardly wonder. Of course, it meant he may have lost a motor oil sale. My, was that boy relieved when I took over. I decided I'd better go out and smooth the troubled waters.
Here you are, sir.
Thank you.
Sure hope everything's all right, Mr. Whitby. We certainly appreciate your business.
Well, I'd appreciate having a really experienced person wait on me. This car represents a big investment, and if I can't get the best of attention, I'll be forced to go someplace else.
Well, Mr. Whitby, I'm sorry to hear that. After this, I'll be sure and look after...
I felt sure we hadn't lost Whitby as a customer. He liked Golden too well. But Gibb didn't feel that way. I've never seen a boy sit down in the mouth. He was afraid I was going to can him. He said he'd been hoping that by this time he'd be really good, that he'd really be able to help me put some extra business on the books. And here he hadn't even got to first base on checking for motor oil sales. It was lunchtime, so I told him to go on out and get a good lunch, and when he came back, we'd sit down and have a real talk about service. But when he got back, things were humming. That's why he had to wait on Mrs. Cox before I had a chance to talk with him and show him where and why he was having so many difficulties. Now, I knew both Mr. and Mrs. Cox pretty well. I'd waited on them often. And as I had sized up Mrs. Cox, she was pretty much like a lot of women who come to the driveway. They know they don't know anything about the mechanical part of a car, so they're on pins and needles the whole time. They're afraid somebody is either putting something over on them or laughing at them. They don't really mean to be unpleasant, but they're nervous and they get pretty shrill sometimes.
Don't you think you're filling the tank too fast? I hate to have gasoline spilled on my car, and I hate to pay for wasted gasoline.
I'll try to be careful, lady.
I just wanted to remind you not to forget to fill the radiator. I've heard of servicemen who had forgotten, and people have had their motors literally burned up.
A kind of sickly look came over Gibb's face, but he touched his cap courteously, and again I made a note that there was a boy who was worth working with.
Your oil's a quart low, lady. I think you better get it.
Look here, young man, I may be a woman, but I'm not a moron. If I need a quart of oil, just say so. That's all that's necessary.
Yes, ma'am.
Of course, it all ended happily, and just before she started to drive away, she asked Gibb if he'd mind taking a chamois to some white spots on the finish of her car. Fluid from an air conditioning tower, she was sure. Well, Gibb got busy with a real active elbow, and the truth was, he was working off a little steam. Better than blowing his top.
Well, I've had it. I didn't know so many people could be so different. Well, at least I did sell that one lady a quart of oil.
Well, there's no doubt about it, Gibb. You have had a lot of tough ones. All in one day, too.
And how?
Well, those were extreme cases, Gibb. But if you learn to handle the extreme cases, it'll be a cinch on the easier ones. Basically, your trouble is, Gibb, you just haven't learned all about people. Sit down just a minute. Now, take 8-step service. Actually, that's just a track to run on. It's a good one, but you have to adjust your service to fit the person behind the wheel, to skip a step if the customer asks you to, or to perform the steps out of order if the customer wants it that way. You have to adjust your attitude, too, to fit the person behind the wheel. Now, I'll admit this all takes a little brain work, but knowing people has a lot to do with success in any job. Now, what does all this have to do with 8-step service? Well, let's see. Now, step 1, the greeting. The rule says, greet the customer courteously, promptly, and with a big wide smile. Call the customer by name whenever possible. And don't forget to tip your hat to the ladies.
But how would I make a step like that fit a man like Herbie Dilworth?
Oh, remember how meek Herbie looked when he drove in? Your greeting followed the rule, but it was too mechanical. It didn't have that extra special touch of respect that would have made Herbie feel important right off. I don't mean bowing and scraping. We're not servants. We're men rendering an important service. But the Herbie Dilworths have to have a build-up, and that's easy enough if you know how. All right, step number 2, clean the windshield. Now, this is a basic service that should be given to every person that comes in the driveway. With most customers, you could start this service immediately without even asking their permission. And if you don't give this service right away with somebody like Herbie Dilworth, he's going to get his feelings hurt. However, you shouldn't give the impression that the service bores you stiff. Herbie and plenty of other customers want to feel you're giving undivided attention to their cars. Now, of course, there are exceptions. Jason Whitby, to be exact. When a man's downright hipped on his car the way Jason is, you shouldn't give any service without first asking permission. If you do, you'll find yourself in hot water like you did this morning.
Yeah, boiling water.
That's right, Gib. Now for step 3, the order. The big thing here is to ask for the maximum order on the highest quality product. For instance, shall I fill it with Golden SO Extra, sir? Of course, there are always exceptions, like the customers that drive older cars who always insist on regular. Now, if you'll think back over the morning's experience, I'm sure you'll realize there's a lot more to this step 3 than merely getting the words right. The way you fill the order is mighty important, too. Remember how fussy Mrs. Cox was about spilled gasoline, a ruined car finish, and waste she might be paying for?
Yeah. I can imagine the chewing out she'd give me if I had spilled gasoline.
Or lost the gas cap. So the rule says, fill the order promptly and efficiently. Don't spill gasoline. Be sure you replace the tank cap. All good ideas, every one of them. Step 4, sweep out the floorboards. Now here's an extra service that customers really appreciate. And it's an important step to us, too, because it opens the way for selling when you get under the hood. How? Well, it puts you in position to look at the door jamb sticker, and then at the speedometer. A quick look shows if an oil change is needed. And of course, the sticker reminds you of all sorts of other services which it might be time for. Step 5, check under the hood. Now, the poster doesn't say so, but when you're in doubt or when you're waiting on a new customer, ask permission before raising the hood. May I check under the hood, sir? This takes care of those exacting, possessive types like Jason Whitby. And if you say it with just the proper note of respect, it might head off scenes with touchy folks like Herbie. You know, this step 5 is very important to us because this is where we begin to hook up 8-step service with 8-step selling. This step and every step in our service just naturally leads into an opportunity to look for and to ask for sales. Now, Gib, you've said several times that you'd like to sort of help up the profits around here by selling more products. Yet about the only products you ever seem to sell are gasoline and motor oil. Well, now, they're important to us, all right, but there are other products, too. Take a look around the station at all the dozens of products that we have for sale. The need for almost every one of them can be detected while you're giving one of the steps of service. The truth is, people expect you to find their needs and to tell them about them. This builds up confidence in you as a fellow who's interested in protecting the customer and his car. Now, about those under-the-hood replacements you should be on the lookout for. Look for a chance to sell radiator hose, fan belts, spark plugs, battery cables, filter elements, antifreeze in winter, batteries, and of course crankcase drains and lubrication jobs. Well, I think you can see that humble 8-step service is just as much a plan for making sales as it is for making happy customers by giving good service. Now, step 6, check the tires. And the fine print says check with a gauge. Be careful not to overinflate low-pressure tires. And if the tires are worn smooth, suggest a new Atlas. That's easy enough, huh?
Yeah, you're right.
Okay. Now next is step 7. Here's your change. Now, that's not the right way to do it. The right way is to mention the amount of money the customer gives you, the amount of the sale, and then count back the customer's change for him. Now, of course, if you're making the sale on a Humble-Matic credit card, just follow the instructions we've given you out at the imprinter. Oh, don't forget to put down the license number of the customer's car. Finally, step 8, the departure. Now, this is your chance to make every customer feel that he's especially appreciated. Fellas like Herbie Dilworth will eat it up. A smile, an invitation to return, and no rushing that might seem like a brush-off. Oh, one other thing, Gib. When you're busy on the drive working on a car and another customer drives in, always acknowledge his presence. Tell him that someone will be with him in just a moment. And always be ready to do these extra little services that come along, cheerfully if the customer asks for them, like changing license plates, filling up the bike tires for the neighborhood kids, or, as you well remember, cleaning white spots off the finish of a lady's car. Sure, sometimes it might be a little annoying, but try not to show it by your expression. These little extra things that you do for people always pay off in the long run. They put people in a good frame of mind, in the right frame of mind to buy our products. Okay, Gib, let's give this 8-step service a good try. What do you say?
Okay, Skipper.
Well, I'm not going to say there was an overnight presto change-o in Gib Roberts, because there wasn't. But every day he improved a little. He seemed to be paying an awful lot of attention to people, their quirks and their, well, I guess you'd say their psychology. And he was using our 8-step service to sell. He was gaining in confidence, too. And the more confidence he had in himself, the more he inspired in his customers. He got the idea of extra services when necessary also. When I saw him wipe cat tracks off the surface of a not-too-new car and heard the pleased thank you of the customer, well, I knew he was really on his way. Of course, the real test came when our 3 main characters returned to the driveway.
Good afternoon, Mr. Dilworth. Shall I fill your tank with SO Extra?
Why, yes. Thank you. Fill it up, please.
Yes, sir.
He gave him every service in the book and then some. Herbie felt that not a thing was left undone. He felt he was getting the same attention that every other customer got who came to our driveway, maybe more. Sure, he was happy. He thought Gib was a real great guy, and I thought so too, as a matter of fact. He'd found the key to handling the Casper milquetoast type, and brother, there are dozens of them coming into our driveways every week. Of course, Jason Whitby was a tougher proposition. Gib's greeting was friendly, but definitely not palsy-walsy.
May I clean your windshield for you, Mr. Whitby?
Yes, please.
Gib asked his permission on every service that he performed, big or little. He even asked if he could check his spare.
Hello there, Mr. Whitby. Everything all right this morning?
Oh, fine, fine. I'm glad to see you have a new boy on the driveway. I never noticed him before.
Oh, yes, Gib's a mighty fine boy.
Mrs. Cox was harder, of course. You know, men never could understand women anyway. But Gib got along with her just fine. He wasn't called down once for insulting her intelligence, and he gave her quite a few little extra services, with a big smile, too. What's the ending to all this? Well, I'm sure you know that it's going to be a happy one. That young fellow, Gib Roberts, is doing a fine job of giving service, and he's selling, too. Oh, sure, one of these days he'll be leaving me to take over his own humble station. But in the meantime, I've got plans of my own. I've been needing an assistant, and I'm sure you know who it's going to be.